Okay. All right. I think we're recording. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to have two incredible women guest speakers here today on Women's Abundance. Dr. Amy Day, who some of you may recognize from the Women's Health Panel in October of 2019 at the David Brower Center. Amy is a naturopathic doctor here in Berkeley, California. She's the founder and creator of the Women's Vitality Center, which has helped thousands of women over the last few years really attain vitality in their life, navigate the craziness of hormones during perimenopause and menopause. And she has an incredible staff, of which I'm super thrilled to have Valerie Tokes with us today. Tokes. I always worried that I'm mispronouncing your last name, Valerie. I apologize.
Tokes.
Okay, Tokes. And Valerie, I was fortunate enough to have speak at a Blue Shield of California Selfcare fair a couple weeks ago, where over 1,000 employees over the course of the three panels attended, because so many people are having so much stress around COVID, around quarantining in place, around parenting and teaching, as well as all of the BLM stuff that's going on. So Valerie is a nationally certified health coach and also specializes in integrative medicine. So I am really thrilled to have you both here today. And before we get started, Amy or Valerie, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I'm just excited to be here and to talk about this subject because it's certainly coming up quite a bit. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, just second to that. Thank you for creating this and delighted to be here today. Thanks.
Great. Well, I thought we could start off with Valerie. And Valerie, since you have, not only did you speak at that panel recently, but you also have a lot of clients right now that are coming to you in your health coaching practice to talk about stresses and everything. Can you share with the audience some of the most common themes that women coming to you or some of your clients are experiencing, and then maybe some of the tips around how to navigate those themes?
Sure. Well, I would say that in general, a lot of women, a lot of people come to me and want to really look at things that are getting in the way of them being kind of as healthy and as vibrant and as vital as they would like to be in their lives. And part of what I have really loved about working with the center is that our doctors come in and create a treatment plan for individuals. And I get to come in and to support people to figure out how to implement that in their life. And oftentimes it's things like work stress, it's kids, it is relationship and partners. Like those are the types of things that are often certainly important in a woman's life, but also are the things that keep them from putting themselves on their own list of priorities. And I have really just seen in the last 3 or 4 months since sheltering in place, and then in the last month and a half, since all of the Black Lives Matter protests have been happening, and the greater awareness around racial injustice, that just kind of adds an additional layer to the stress that people are already under and already feeling. And so in terms of tips and things that I often will suggest to people, in some ways it feels like a return to the basics. Things like when you recognize that you're in a really stressful moment, and maybe it's like finding that you're really short-tempered or you're feeling really irritable, like just a simple practice of taking one deep breath, like coming back to the breath in the body and just, that can often be what somebody feels like that's all that they have time for, but that breath in and of itself can be just such a calming, grounding agent in a person's life. And part of what I think I also really enjoy about coaching with people over a period of time is finding ways to help and remind people that taking care of yourself is actually not, it's not a selfish act. It is not something that takes away from the other things that you're doing in your life, but it actually is the thing that allows you to do more in your life. If you're feeding yourself well, if you're getting enough sleep, if you're drinking enough water, if you're making sure that you exercise on a regular basis, you just feel better in your body and you can show up in your life, for your kids, for your work, for your relationship, just coming from a much more centered, grounded place. And oftentimes that's what we want. We feel like we're at our at our wits' end with all the things. And something as simple as turning back to yourself, asking your body what it needs. Are you hungry? Are you tired? Do you need water? Like again, those simple practices are things that can be really grounding for people. And so I really love being able to just remind people of that wisdom that they already have and to reinforce for them that it's not taking away, but it's actually adding to their well-being.
Thank you, Valerie. I know at the self-care fair that you spoke at last week, there were a lot of employees in the corporate space that, to your point, they feel conflicted with asking their family or their children or their spouse, or their boss for the space they need. Um, as you coach your clients in number one, acknowledging it's not selfish and that they can help themselves and others more if they have a full cup, how do you coach them to go about that difficult conversation with their family members, like, I need more space? How do they do it in a graceful way?
Well, I think the first and foremost is sort of getting clear for each individual person, what is the thing that they need? I was recently working with someone who has teenage kids, and they very much part of how they identify themselves as being a mom and being there for their kids. Absolutely. And her kids are older and able to take on it and to do more. And so having conversations with them, one, being honest, right now is a time where we're all feeling a lot of stress. I hadn't anticipated that we were all going to be under the same roof, working from home, schooling from home, and then just being together at home. And so saying to your kids, I really need your help so that we all can feel really happy and thrive together. And, absolutely keeping it kind of age appropriate for little ones, like the amount of responsibility they can take on isn't as great, of course, as teenagers, but they can certainly help out by setting the table or unloading the dishwasher or like simple things that are helpful to mom because it's taking one thing kind of off of her plate of things to do. But then it's also an opportunity for them to feel pride in themselves and like, yes, I'm contributing to the household. And so I think the conversations can feel like they will be difficult, but it's kind of this idea of it's how you make the request. And if the request is coming from this place of genuine care for them, and they have, of course, love and care for mom, like how can we figure out how to do this so that it works for all of us?
Thank you. Yeah, it reminds me, your talk reminds me about when I was a little girl and my mom, I have three siblings. So my mom was, when my dad was away, for sometimes 6 months at a time, my mom had four kids and to deal with. And she would put a sign on her door. She sat us down at dinner one night and said, when this sign is up on my door, it says like, mommy is resting and
Mm,
do not interrupt me. And so we had this door that said like, it's okay to come in or mommy's resting. And she said the funny thing is that like each kid would be like, oh, I only came up once. And she's like, yes, but there are four. So she would get interrupted, and each child thought they were doing their best. But I loved the concept now. I hadn't thought about it until you just reminded me that even pre-COVID, my mom tried to initiate some ways to communicate with us to say, hey, I need to rest. Sometimes she would go sit in her car to get away from us and just sit. And I think that was her way of meditating. And then I have another friend who's a doctor who, when when she has her bath time, all the kids know. She says, this is mommy's time. It is, you can live without me for 30 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think that also models for you, hopefully, that it's okay to take care of yourself, and that it's an important thing that mom takes care of herself. And hopefully when the kids get older, they remember that and they take care of themselves in the same ways. It's beautiful. I love that story.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it was a good reminder. So, Amy, this obviously self-care is something that's a big part of the Women's Vitality Center, and I know when you spoke and addressed the audience at the David Brower Center last year, you focused a lot about the physiological and mental impacts that stress can have on not only any human being's body, but especially a woman as she's going through perimenopause and menopause and already has some hormonal imbalance. I would love for you to share all of your knowledge. Oh, I hope my dog doesn't bark. He just ran past. All of your knowledge on anything you want to share around, especially the impacts of stress and why it's so important to do what Valerie's saying to do. If we don't self-care and we don't take the time out, what can happen to us and what are those consequences? Because some of them are pretty severe, as you and I have experienced.
Yes, many viewers will probably have experienced as well, recognizing that, like, when you get really overwhelmed and really stressed out, that your body starts talking to you, because it's asking for help. It's asking you to do these things that Valerie's talking about too. So how does that happen? So stress is not always a bad thing. Like, there's good stress and there's bad stress, and life keeps, keeping things exciting and interesting has a stress aspect to it. It's a matter of how intense that stress is and how well you're doing and at managing it and coping with it. So when our bodies are responding to stress in terms of our hormones, a big part of what happens is an increase in the production of the main stress hormone, which is called cortisol, which is a hormone that's produced by the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys in the mid-back, and they produce a host of hormones, but one of the main ones is our stress hormone, cortisol. So when we have a stressor, our body produces more cortisol, and then once we get to a place of calm, that cortisol should come back down again. So that's an acute stress response. Our cortisol and our adrenals also help us to regulate our 24-hour clock, and have to do with our alertness and motivation and attention and brain function and energy over the course of the day also. So we naturally produce more cortisol in the morning, and then it tapers down slowly over the course of the day and is supposed to be low at nighttime. So this being awake and alert in the day, and then sleeping and restful and quiet and restorative at nighttime, is a really important thing that can get thrown off when our stress response is not working properly or is overwhelmed. When people are exposed to more stress repeatedly, which is very often what happens in modern society anyway, and then we add on the extra layers that we have in our world right now, and it's just like, when do you get to that place of calm? It seems like it's just one stress after the other, and the body is going to try to respond to that. It's going to try to produce that cortisol and keep those hormones and those things going that help you to stay on track and stay up and on and able to handle everything. And eventually what can happen, and many women that we meet up are getting to this point where this has been going on for such a long time that the system is having a hard time continuing to respond to that. So we end up with the generic term for it, you may have heard of, is adrenal fatigue, where the stress response is just tired out. It's just not mounting that same response, even though the stimulus may still be there. That deadline is still there. Your kids are still not doing the things they're supposed to do, or you're having issues with your partner, or whatever's going on. There's like issues and world issues that, this constant, but we can just get to a point where our response system in our body is called the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals, as part of the endocrine systems regulation of this, just starts to not trigger as much. It down regulates instead of being up regulated all the time. And that can lead to this just lethargy and brain fog and dysregulated energy patterns through the day. You might be super exhausted trying to like drag yourself out of bed in the morning, but then by the time it's nighttime and you're like, oh, finally I can go to sleep, bing, everything turns on and your brain's awake and everything's like firing. So you can get this reverse experience. So it can show up in a lot of different ways like that. And the adrenals, this cortisol, also very importantly impacts many other aspects of the hormones and of other aspects of health as well. So when you're under stress, your body shuts down digestive processes. It shuts down the immune system. When you're in a stress state, your body is focused on surviving the next few minutes in a fight or flight kind of mode. And the longer term processes, especially digestion and immune system, are places where we see this, are just not functioning as well. And in terms of hormones, the adrenals are, I think of a pyramid where of how the hormones have importance, and the adrenals are absolutely the base. Like when we're starting with anyone on any kind of hormonal dysregulated imbalance issues, we always want to start with a foundation of improving adrenal health, because the adrenals impact the other hormones and the other body systems too. So thyroid also gets impacted by adrenals. Our thyroid has to do with regulating metabolism and temperature regulation and dryness and moisture in the body, and hair, and lots of different issues, mood things. So adrenals and thyroid are very tightly intertwined, and really important to have good adrenal health to help the thyroid to work better. And both of those greatly impact our sex hormones. So often we think of hormone imbalances, we're mostly thinking about the sex hormones for women in terms of our periods and perimenopause, and what's going on with our cycles or with fertility or any of that. But the base of adrenals and then thyroid and then the impact on the sex hormones is how we like to address it. Because we can build a more stable foundation that helps the sex hormones to work better. But when they get thrown off too, then we have all the typical perimenopausal and cycle issues and challenges. So I hope that's a good overview.
Oh, no, it's fantastic. And it reminds me of a couple of things I want you to dig a little bit deeper into before we go into tips from you both and your upcoming program. But what are some of the things you mentioned one sign that I personally have lived through, losing hair, right? I remember this was when at one time in my corporate job, when I was traveling back and forth to Ohio every week, I remember losing a lot of hair, and I was like, gosh, this is crazy. I talked to my hairdresser. I'm like, did you use the wrong highlighting solution on my head? And she's like, I think you're stressed. And so there are many, many signs that our body give us to help us be aware. And so losing hair is one of them. The other thing, Amy, if you can touch a teeny bit more on the mental, I remember when I was working with you, post my cancer and all the stress that brought up, and going back to work after that, I think my cortisol was so high and my adrenals so fatigued that I lost mental cognition ability. And it was only at that point where I was like, oh my God, I'm in this nonstop state of fight or flight. So my brain actually can't see the bigger picture. It's not slowing down. It's constantly in stress. So the question I want you to touch upon is, what are some of the signs, the common signs, and especially because adrenal fatigue is, as you said, at the base. Like maybe it's not those hot flashes, maybe there's something that's sex hormone, maybe there's other signs that are could help women understand. I mean, it could be something as simple as, do I not have patience anymore? Am I losing my temper? What are some of the things that you see, or even if that Valerie sees, that might be indicative to maybe my adrenals need a little help?
Yeah, good. Because a lot of the symptoms overlap a lot. It's like, oh, I have irritability. Is that sex hormones? Is that thyroid? Is that adrenals? What is that about? Or hair loss even can be to any of those three. So, and in terms of the mental things, there's the cognitive, there's that brain functioning. And then there's also mood issues of anxiety, depression, irritability, just mood swings, that short temper. All of those can potentially be part of any of the three, the adrenals, the thyroid, or the sex hormones. So teasing that apart is really important. There are labs that can be run to help really measure the numbers so that we can tell which thing is more off. But in terms of symptoms that people might recognize, that would really identify when it's most likely to be adrenals as that issue is one, just recognizing, like, do your symptoms seem related to stress? Like, can you tell when you're under more stress, those things are worse? And when you've had an acute stressor, that's what triggered it off. So that the daily pattern of the rhythm is another thing, of energy, because the adrenals are supposed to produce more cortisol in the morning, taper off through the day, and drop at nighttime. If you're not having that kind of pattern for your energy, that can speak to the adrenals, where fatigue and thyroid is more typically kind of just tired all the time, where fatigue associated with adrenals might be at certain parts of the day, where you get that afternoon slump, or you get that perk of energy at bedtime, like I said, or those kind of like maybe really tired in the morning, but then okay for the rest of the day. So when there's a pattern to the energy, also craving salt especially seems to be common with adrenal fatigue, because they're on top of the kidneys. They also regulate your kidneys, and that has to do with your fluid regulation and electrolytes. So cravings like that can really have to do with it too. So those are a few of the top things. We have a great symptom quiz and different ways of trying to tease it apart. And then there are labs that can help to tease it apart too. But I'd say those, when you see that pattern with stress, that's a big indicator.
Thank you. I love the fact that you have a quiz, because in my mind, as I was listening to you, I remember a long time ago, it was when apps first came out on phones, there was like a period tracker for women and young girls to help them. And I'm guessing nowadays there are phone journals or phone notes for your health. And the fact that you all have a quiz, and I think even, I remember Taylor, the CEO of The Cusp, I think he was contemplating creating some sort of app. You know, his passion is marrying IT and medical, since he's a doctor himself. I'm wondering what apps are out there to help women track these things, because you're right. I don't necessarily diligently track my energy throughout the day, but it's good to remind women if they start to see patterns to take note.
Yeah. If viewers are interested in our quiz, can I give the URL for that?
Absolutely.
It's the beginning is the same as our main website. So it's womensvitalitycenter.com, and then /hormone quiz.
Oh, fantastic.
Where to
I'll remind
find
people.
that. So yeah, womensvitalitycenter.com /hormone quiz. And it's not on the like front facing part of our website, but it's something that we offer as a extra gift for when we do talks and stuff like this. So yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, so many women are going to love that. And then they're going to call you and say, wait, my score is this. What do I do now? Okay, so moving on into the final segment, kind of both of your perspectives and tips for women. Number one, I know that you have a workshop on building emotional resilience coming up next Monday, July 20th, from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. And people can register again at the Women's Vitality Center. You can go under events and click on that, and it's a free event. But what, without spoiling too much about the 5 keys to getting emotional resilience, especially during this time, just for some takeaway for women, can you each share a couple of tips of things that women can practice that is easy and maybe adoptable, that will help them?
Well, as you said, without giving away the workshop, the one that I think I come back to again and again is what I mentioned earlier, which is to keep it simple. Like when you notice yourself getting activated, when you notice yourself acting in ways that aren't typically how you move through the world, short temper, irritability, always come back to the breath and to the body. Just take one deep breath, keep it really simple, so that you are able to kind of tune back into what's true for you and then make choices and move forward from there.
Thanks, Valerie. How about you, Amy?
Yeah, I'll say, one of the things that I think is so important about the message that Valerie's talking about, and that idea that self-care is not selfish. We live in a society that very much promotes putting ourselves last and taking care of everything and everyone else first. And a big part of what I see perpetuates that is the idea that we don't have time. So the idea that like, oh, there's already so many things to do, I can't take the time in addition to all those other things to go off and do something else to take care of myself. So just to piggyback on what Valerie just said, like the simple things, and literally many of the things that can be beneficial do not take any extra time at all. It's just a different way of doing things. And if it does take any time, it might be like the 30 seconds to take a deep breath. And out of all of the things that you do in a 24-hour day, you should be able to take 30 seconds for yourself, right? So this idea of trying to really acknowledge that it's hard. You can't just go do a 3-hour, immersive meditation thing or whatever every single day in your really busy life. And you don't have to. There are these little things that you can do along the way. And one of my favorite starting places is a winding down routine as you go to bed at night. And if you're going to be lying down to fall asleep anyway, it really doesn't need to be any extra buffer of extra time, but purposefully transitioning from your day to your restful night is a really, really important thing to do to help reset the clock and help the adrenals get the pattern that they need, and to really get the restorative sleep that you need at nighttime. And, a popular thing these days is like the apps that are the 10-minute guided meditations. That's a fantastic thing to do. You can I give you permission to do it while you're in bed. If you're not going to take the extra 10 minutes, even like sitting up somewhere to do it, it's a really good habit to build in. And if you can't do that, literally taking like 3 deep breaths as you put your head down on your pillow and go to sleep can really make a profound difference on how your physiology adjusts and how your night goes then. So.
I love how all of you, all the people that I bring on this show that have women's health at the forefront of their passion. There's always a common theme. Regaya, Amy, who an Ayurvedic specialist, I spoke with him a week or so ago, and he also said, in today's world, people are not taking that transition time before they go to sleep. So they're watching the news, or they're dealing with their kids, and then they just get in bed and they don't prep for that good night of sleep. And we all know that sleep, if a woman, probably if all human beings, but especially a woman as she's going through perimenopause and menopause, does not get enough sleep, that's just going to exacerbate any stress issues. So I love the reminders from both of you. I love the just the 30 seconds, Valerie, of a deep breath. I remember I had to take when I was a director at Gap Tech, I had to take a happiness course, not had to, but all of the leadership management who managed a lot of people took this fabulous course, and it was called Happiness, and it was a 6-week course. And the 1-minute meditation book that was made famous by, I can't remember the name of the author, I'm going to have to put it in the bio when we post this, but just the ability to have a 1 minute. And in this book, they described brushing your brain and like brushing all of the calcification or bad thoughts out of the day or the stress. And so I think a minute is just a few deep breaths, but even if that simple deep breath, and then I love the wind down, Amy. So, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I know we're about at time. So before we go, I wanted to remind speakers that, or sorry, not, I wanted to remind the audience about your workshop on Monday, July 20th. It's building emotional resilience, and right, it's the 5 keys to alleviating worry, stress, and anxiety. Okay, and it's free, right?
Yep, completely
Yep.
free.
Okay, and then the other thing, Amy, I thought would be worthwhile for people to hear about are some of those other longer programs that you offer. That it for women, especially if they feel like they need support and need to do something with accountability. Amy has some amazing courses that are through the Women's Vitality Center where a group of women will join and go through like a 6 or a 12-week course together. Will you talk a little bit about some of your programs?
Yes. So we have we have a variety of ways of supporting women. So I'll say a little something, and then I want to have Valerie talk about it. The program that we have actually coming up most soon. But I just want to let people know, if you have any interest in just like, you know, talking with us a little more about where you're at and what's going on with you and which of our services might be the best, we offer a complimentary initial call on our website. So just go to womensvitalitycenter.com and you can fill out your information there, and we'll chat with you and learn more about what's going on and what would be of benefit to you. So in addition to private patient care, we do group programs also. One that Karen is familiar with and we've been doing for several years now is called Replenish. And it's all about helping to build up adrenal health and create that foundation for overall hormone balance. So we run it twice a year, in the spring and in the fall. And that's a great foundational way to start building the bottom of the pyramid of really focusing on those adrenals and the self-care practices, and how to do it in ways that take the little amount of time to start making the shifts to help build an upward spiral of building your health and building your habits and creating that hormonal balance for yourself. So that is coming up. We haven't set the date yet, but we should be setting it soon. But this year, we're actually also launching a new program that Valerie is going to be leading in August, that I will let her speak about. So I think this would be a really, really nice next step. If people are interested, check out our workshop on Monday on building emotional resilience. And then if you want to take the next steps, her month-long course in August would be a great next step for you.
Yeah. And the month-long program that we're creating and will be launching in August is tentatively titled Love Yourself Well, Building Emotional Resilience in Uncertain Times. And this program is really designed to be a way to help women specifically in thinking about the fall that's coming up. The uncertainty of whether kids will be physically going back to school, and kind of the anxiety and the thought process for parents that comes with sending your kid to school, and whether it's safe and whether it's healthy. Or there's also talk about perhaps school will be students will be at home and doing some kind of distance learning, which of course adds a different kind of stress to a mom's existence. And so this program is really designed to not just help moms, but also to help women who don't have children, but who are recognizing that this is the new normal. And how do you balance your work, your partnership, your kids, your friends in uncertain times, and doing it in a way that allows you to feel very grounded, very centered in who you are, feeling very empowered as you step into fall of 2020. So that's going to be the focus for our program.
Thank you both so much, and
I'm
I'm excited. I will.
So to say, I'm so excited to have this program coming into being right now. It's so needed, and I think, you know, there's all the layers that we're already always dealing with, and now is just such unprecedented times. And I can't be more delighted to have Valerie on our team and to be able to offer this program. And I think we're all feeling the extra layers and levels of challenges going on right now, and women, so the majority of women will benefit so much from coming together in community and learning and being together and supporting each other and figuring out how we're going to navigate this and how we're going to take care of ourselves, and have that self-care in place to be able to make it through the rest of this really crazy year that we're living in right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think women thrive in community, and they thrive when they have support of their sisters, unlike, not different than men. Men need support as well, but it's a very different way in which we operate. So I'm super excited for you both in the program, and Valerie, for you, for a month long. If I can, I'm going to see if I can somehow block my calendar on Monday, or start my workday earlier so I can join the 4:30 session this upcoming Monday. But a big thank you to both of you for joining and sharing your upcoming programs with the audience, and also sharing your knowledge on how women can de-stress and provide self-care for themselves. And Amy, especially around the adrenal health, and just how that is the foundation, and women really need to focus on taking care of adrenals in their everyday living. So honored.
And the workshop is recorded. So if people, you know, I know no time is perfect for everyone. So Monday at 4:30, if you can't leave work earlier, that doesn't work, or you're just pooped that day and you need to do it on a weekend or something, just go ahead and sign up, and the recording is going to be sent out afterwards. So trying to make that
that's
flexible for people. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you both, and I hope you have a terrific week. We will post this, as you know, and luckily IG Live stays there, so people will have access to it as well. But thank you both, and again, such a pleasure to speak with you and see you again.
Thanks for all the amazing work you're doing with this site and this page and in your life, Karen. It's really a pleasure to see what you're
welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.